This time, people may close.
Thank you. Good afternoon. This is I'm sure you're happy to hear, this is the last time you'll be hearing from us. This is the rebuttal. So the main point of rebuttal is to basically rebut points and statements that the defense brought out. I won't be going through all the evidence again. My co-counsel did a very, very, very thorough job of it. And the reason she was so thorough and spent the amount of days that she did was because every detail in this case matters. Every single detail matters. And it's those details and those points that have been brought out, the statements from witnesses that have come out, the evidence you've been shown, that when you put it all together, it forms a picture of what really happened. And it shows you the involvement that the defendant had in conspiring to kill Fabio. It was pointed out many, many times, it's never one piece of evidence. It's the collective effort of all the evidence that you saw over the last few weeks, months, I should say, a couple months, that points to the guilt of the defendant. The defense started this opening with, "This is just an affair." And that has been the theme continuously from the defense the entire trial. This is just an affair. She didn't know anything about it. And they stated it in closing. Again, it became the theme. This is just an affair. But this is a lot more than just an affair. And I think you've seen that through the testimony and the evidence that's been presented to you. An affair, although is not condoned by most people, is about lies. We have that. It's about deceit. You're deceiving people. You're deceiving your family. You're deceiving your loved ones. But this one takes it to another level. There's planning involved here. We have where we started with an affair and the deceit and the lies that are part of having an affair. But that went a step further. They started talking about their future, where they're going to live, when the kids are out of the house, where they're going to travel to. They started planning. This affair turned to murder. That was one obstacle, the obstacle that stood in the way of the happiness of the defendant and Baker. This wasn't just an affair. We've used the terms sick, twisted. That's what it was. You saw a lot of evidence to a lot of conduct, a lot of statements of what these two meant to each other. They meant everything to each other. Even after Robert Baker is arrested, Monica is arrested, they continue the same kind of talk. In fact, one could say it intensified, because now they're in it together, ride or die. That means something to them. Ride or die, Bonnie and Clyde. They're in this together forever. They started this affair, and they're going to see it through until the end, and that means being together at any cost. And finally, you end this affair with the cover-up. There's a lot of cover-up in this case. So once again, I emphasize to you that this isn't just an affair. What may have started as an affair turned into something a lot more deadly. You know through the evidence that this affair started around early 2016, maybe into 2015, when the defendant joined the racquetball club. And you knew that she was already looking. So this fairy tale of a happy marriage was a farce. It didn't exist. She was already looking. She tried with Matt Nurse and was rejected. So it's actually the defendant who started this entire scenario, why we're all here. She was not happy in her marriage. She told Matt Nurse she was not happy in her marriage. But that affair then began with Robert Baker, and it quickly started escalating. And it's the escalation of this affair that ultimately turns deadly. And it escalated to, by March, she was so bold. The risks were being taken now. They were going out in public, in Los Angeles, in the area, on double dates with another couple, while she was married to Fabio. While she lived at home with her husband and kids, she's going out to dinner. It's getting bolder, riskier. She goes to Vegas then in July of 2016. And keep in mind, this trip to Vegas was with her husband. She went with her husband, Fabio, while she's having an affair with Baker, to a work event in Las Vegas, and she couldn't even go away for one weekend. Not one weekend with her husband, without inviting Baker to come along. So what began as a trip with her and her husband to Vegas now turned into a trip for her to see her boyfriend, her lover. And she couldn't even spend time with her husband and she couldn't wait to get away from him. The minute he went to another meeting at another hotel, she was with Baker. This public persona that she has presented to her family and her friends is all a lie. And the defense had her daughter, Jessica, on the stand and had Jessica talk about this wonderful video that she took of her parents. And you know what? It's really sad. It's sad for Jessica that they're doing that to her. That she filmed this video of her parents dancing. And even this many years later, she's in court supporting her mother, who she wants to believe in, she wants to trust, because of course her father's been murdered. No child wants to believe that her mother is the one that murdered her father. And she's showing you all this video saying, look how happy my parents were. And you know what? She probably believed it. I don't think she's lying. But that video that was filmed in October, and I think the next one was December, January, that time frame when Jessica's believing her mom and dad are so happy, her mom is telling Fabio, good night, I love you, while he's out of town, sneaking out of the house, going over to Baker's, dressing up in sexy outfits and taking photos. Her mother, again, the time frame when she's videoing her parents so happy, is providing the password for her home surveillance system to Robert Baker so that he can watch them. Watch them, they're teen girls coming and going. Her mother was going out with Baker while Fabio's out of town during the same time frame, during all these videos, bringing him back to her house, having him sleep in her marital bed, and the daughter finds her in the morning, and then she lies to her and says, oh, Sheila was here too, when you now know through the evidence nobody else was there. She went out partying with Baker, brought him home, and he slept in her bed. During the same time that they're filming the videos of her happy parents, the defendant's sending the itineraries of Fabio every time he goes out of town to Baker. But again, you bring your daughter in here and you let her get on the stand and testify how happy and loving her parents were when she knew none of this. But this affair kept escalating. It didn't just end with, I want to be with Robert Baker, we're having a great time. And I think the defense made a statement about, she didn't need to kill Fabio. She was happy with the way things were. Well, she wasn't. Why? Because she wasn't Mrs. Baker yet. How much more evidence do you have to see to know that she wanted to be Mrs. Baker? That was her ultimate goal. She wasn't happy with how things were. Fabio was the barrier to that happiness. And this is November of 2016 when she wrote Mrs. Baker on the mirror. And I'm a little shocked that the defense even insinuated that Robert Baker, you see a black bar there, that's because she was naked from the waist down. So Robert Baker said, take off your underwear right now, grab your lipstick and write Mrs. Baker on the mirror. Completely unreasonable. Back to our reasonable instruction. That's a completely unreasonable assumption. She wrote that because she wanted to. How do we know that? Because as it continued, as the affair continued and she's arrested, Mrs. Baker continued. How many letters from jail when she called herself Mrs. Baker? For eternity. Mrs. Robert L. Baker. That's the goal. This is after she's been told that Robert Baker's DNA has been found all over her house. She's still continuing this because she's been in on it the whole time. She's so detached from the murder of Fabio when it happens because it's already been in motion. This has been her goal. This is a good time for her. That's why you see her out celebrating with Robert Baker. She's the opposite of mourning. Now she's closer to that goal of getting what she's wanted for all these months, to be Mrs. Baker. we get to Robert Baker. And defense, from the beginning, again in opening, consistently has told you that this is all Robert Baker. Well, what are they going to say? Obviously, the defendant's on trial. Robert Baker's pled. We all know his role in the murder. So now it has to be all Robert Baker's fault. And he's this master manipulator. I think the words were, he had total control over that woman. What evidence did you see in this trial anywhere that he had total control over that woman? The evidence actually showed the opposite. She did what she wanted, when she wanted, and she didn't care. She didn't care that her daughters were upset. She didn't care that her mother was upset. She didn't care that her sister, her friends were upset. She did what she wanted. And this master manipulator, there's been a lot of conversation back and forth between my co-counsel and defense about whether he's dumb or not dumb. What I will say about Robert Baker is he's not the evil genius behind the curtain. He's not. This is a man who answered true to answers on the witness stand. This is the guy who, when he did kill Fabio, he cut his own hand and ran around the house dripping his blood everywhere, leaving a trail everywhere that it was him. Then furthermore, he got into Fabio's car, drove off in the Porsche, and dripped blood in the Porsche. This guy is not capable of setting this whole thing up. There has to be brains behind this. No one's ever said the defendant isn't smart or cunning or manipulative, because that's exactly what she is. And for Robert Baker to figure this out, he needed to know the timing. He needed to know when he could go there. And that story about we talked every day, I knew her schedule, that's not enough to bank on. He needed to be told, like Austin told you, when to go. It's go time. Let's go. Remember how he hurried up Austin? He said, let's go. Austin told you. He said, let's go. We got to go. It was a rush because that window was small. And that's the whole point. Remember, this murder wasn't supposed to happen on the 23rd. So that's the new game changer. There's a new plan. The defendant made herself unavailable. She knew the Friday before Jessica would be babysitting that Monday at 4. She knew Bella had an interview at 4, and she made herself unavailable at 4 and out of the house. The window was 4. He's jogging up the hill at 4:18. Furthermore, he had to know he could get in the house. What was his plan? What was his plan if all the doors are locked? Did anyone ever think about that? If the defendant had nothing to do with this, what happens when you get there and all the doors are locked? As Austin told you, she said to him, the front door will be unlocked. And they went right through the front door. This backdoor theory that the defense has presented to you in his argument is a theory. There's no evidence whatsoever that supported any backdoor entry. None. He also needed to know to take the DVR box. How would he think to take the DVR box? Okay, he had access. Yes, he knew about that, right? Which is already weird in itself. And you have to ask yourself, why does he even have access to watch the comings and goings of the Sementilli family? But he has to know to take the DVR box, and he has to know where it is. Now, we know he's been in her house because he's been in there and he's slept with her in her own house twice. The second time being, again, when Fabio was out of town and they were on their Vegas trip together, husband and wife, when Baker showed up, and then she came back with Baker in Austin. So we do know that Baker's been there twice, sleeping with her in the house while Fabio was still alive. But again, no evidence he would have known where that DVR box was. The Porsche keys. How would he ever have known that the Porsche keys were kept in that drawer where the blood was, where that 12 placard was? The answers to all these are obvious. She told him. She gave him that information. This was what you call an inside job. He had knowledge of this. He had to get it from somewhere. That's the only reasonable conclusion you can come to, is that he was given that information by the defendant. Defense counsel also brought up this letter that he wrote in August of 2023, and I want to point something out. It's not like when you compare Austin and Baker to each other, there's really no comparison. They committed a crime together, but it's very obvious that they had different mental states and different roles. That doesn't mean you have to believe everything each of them says or you want to be their best friend, but they're two very different people. When we talk about control, there was control over Austin to a degree. There was a large age gap. Austin had grown up really idolizing Rob Baker. But when you really look at it, the two of them, there's a big difference in them and their roles and why they did it. And they both pled. They're both going to be in prison for quite a long time. And I'll get to that in a little bit about the difference between that. But when he writes this letter in August of 2023, now for 6 years, Baker maintained his innocence. So let's remember that. He pleaded not guilty, and he remained steadfast on not guilty for 6 years. It wasn't until August of 2023 that he pled. And we talked about that plea, and Mr. Levine brought up the plea agreement. And let me be clear on that. That was an open plea agreement to the court. That was not a negotiated plea with the DA's office. And there's been all this talk about he didn't take a deal. He was never offered a deal. Let me repeat that. Mr. Baker was never offered any way, shape, or form of a deal by the DA's office. So when he pled to the charges to the court. Judge Cohen took the plea. And during those pleas, why didn't he say who the co-conspirator was? Why didn't he say what the overt act was he was committed? That's not how a plea works. You plead to the charge, Judge Cohen took it, and then you're sentenced. And I want to point out, when he pled to the charge, he pled to murder in the first degree, which we all know is the premeditated murder. He also pled to, as has been told to you already, he pled to the fiduciary gain, or financial gain. Keep in mind, he pled to financial gain. What financial gain would Robert Baker ever get from this? He wouldn't, unless she gave him money. So when he pled guilty, I plead guilty that I did this murder for financial gain. I admit that that's why I did it, is what he's saying to you. He's not getting any money unless she's promised it to him. Same with the conspiracy. When he pled guilty to conspiracy, I conspired. That's 2 or more people. Austin wasn't even arrested. Austin's name wasn't even on the table. Austin wasn't identified as the second killer, but he pled guilty to the conspiracy. And again, during the plea, they don't ask you the names of these questions aren't asked. So I want to be clear on that so that you're not misled during this plea and how it came about with Mr. Baker. The letter that he wrote then, after he pled, he wrote this self-serving letter. And I say self-serving because it was ridiculous, and even Mr. Baker got on the stand and said, yeah, it was a lie. So we know that Mr. Baker's lied over and over and over again. And in that letter, he came up with a story after, 7 years of thinking about this. The best that he could come up with in 7 years was, Dear Monica, I broke into your house to kill Fabio because I wanted to leave a birthday present under your pillow. And Fabio snuck up behind me and attacked me, and I must have stabbed him. I don't really remember. I blacked out. That's what he came up with after 7 years of being in custody. And he wrote that letter and gave it to the defense. And the defense asserts he didn't know it would end up with a prosecution. Of course he did. Of course he did, because during these 7 years, as you saw, their jail mail has all been confiscated. Their phone calls have been tracked and turned over. He knows all this because once it's done, it's turned over to the defense. The defense tells them, and there's calls and letters saying from the lawyers, stop talking to each other. Stop writing to each other. Because the DA's getting it all. And just like happened, we used it in court. So again, when the defense says there's been no communication since she found out he was the killer in 2018, what changed in 2018? I don't remember anyone telling you what changed in 2018 that's when he decided to stop communicating, or she decided to stop communicating. She knew about the DNA when they were arrested in 2017. So why did it take a year to stop communicating? What changed? Again, nothing. Nothing changed. Except the lawyers saying, stop. You guys are going to get yourselves in trouble. All this stuff's getting confiscated. It looks really bad because you know what? It is bad. Because they didn't care. They didn't care because this was a plan that they had together, and they were going to see it through to the end. Ride or die for eternity, linked and synced. The divorce versus death, and I'm not going to go through all that. I promise you I won't. But the reason that you heard from Ms. Ebersbacher is because the defense was going to say always what they said. She could have just divorced him. She had no reason to kill him. She could have just divorced him. And we knew that argument was coming because that's a logical argument to make if you were the defense. Just like they said, she didn't have to kill him. She could have just left him. Although they did maintain that she was happy in her marriage. She's happy the way things were. But they also gave the caveat of, but she could have divorced him. Well, we know divorce wasn't an option. There's social barriers to why divorce wasn't an option. The family would never accept it. The defense and the prosecution agreed on these issues. They're never going to accept her leaving Fabio Sementilli, this man loved by everybody. And when I say everybody, everybody. They're never going to accept it for her to go to this porn star 55-year-old man who lives in an apartment in Canoga Park, who is a racquetball league coordinator as his hobby job, I think he referred to it as, who has no money to his name, and oh, by the way, has, I lost count of it, 6 or 7 felony convictions for sexual assault of a 14-year-old. Never going to accept that. But there is a financial aspect. So even if you're going to get over the social barrier, which she couldn't, she knew she couldn't. Financially, what's better off? That's why Ms. Ebersbacher prepared that table to show you that here's the estimate of what divorce would be. Here's an estimate what death would be. So that if this comes up, you can see the difference. But the one glaring point that cannot be ignored is life insurance. You have to die. You get a lump sum of money. If you die, you get life insurance. There's no mediation. There's no going to court because it's a contested divorce. There's no variables about spousal support. And by the way, Ms. Ebersbacher did touch on spousal support and said, I can't put it in because I don't know what it would be, which is a fair statement. She doesn't know. There's all these variables with divorce that are unknown, but what is the one known thing? When you die and you have life insurance, you get a lump sum. There you go. That's probably as far as the defendant was thinking, quite honestly. But nevertheless, Mr. Malatesta came into court, and he testified for you. But what was ironic with the testimony of Mr. Malatesta is he came in under the presumption that he was going to rebut Marie Ebersbacher, the forensic accountant, on the death versus divorce. His credentials, though, was Melrose Place, Cheers, myself, Law and Order, and he rambled on and on about that. So right at the very beginning, is a little skeptical about why he's here. He told you he worked as a mediator now, but when I questioned him, and again, this is always coming out on cross-exam, he's never testified as an expert in criminal court as a divorce expert. Family accountant, never done it. So you're going to start with a murder trial with a couple days' notice. He said, I'm not an estate lawyer. I'm not here to testify about divorce. So you're basically coming in, hired by the defense, one-sided, to talk about the benefits of a divorce. I'm sorry, I'm not going to testify about death. The benefits of divorce. But you are not equipped to compare it to death. So what's the point here? What is the point here? And again, you don't know the Sementillis. You don't know their situation. You could estimate, which is what he did, and said, I'm going to put a number of $90,000 for 10 years. And he came up with a number. And again, on cross, I had to say, does that mean that she never has to work? She doesn't have to do anything? Because I think this is a big part. The defendant wants the money, the lump sum, the life insurance. She doesn't have to work. She can continue her life and go be Mrs. Baker. It's easy. But Mr. Malatesta opined these things, but he hadn't talked to anybody. He only gave you what we really got was that his guess of $90,000 for 10 years. $7,500. Jason Rubin came in, and again, called by the defense, and the first thing that he said to you, which should have caused a little bit of concern, is, I have 2 careers. All right, well, which career are you here for? And he said, I am a fiduciary to administer the estate of Fabio, and I'm a forensic accountant. Okay? His real goal was, again, to dispute Marie Ebersbacher. He talked to you about, oh yeah, I talked to Miss Ebersbacher about that chart. Defense never asked Miss Ebersbacher about this case because, in fact, I think she testified to, I got documents from the probate. She's doing the analysis. All they do is they provide documents from the estate. She has no reason to have to talk to Mr. Rubin about her own job. He provides the documents. She prepares the report. But when he comes in here, there's a clear conflict of interest in what's going on now. You were hired by the estate, whether it be Luigi or somebody else. This was years ago when Fabio was murdered. You were hired by the estate to administer the probate estate. That's your job. So why are you coming in testifying for the defense based on things that are way out of that lane? Way out of that lane. Asked about alimony. He started opining on alimony and then finally conceded that he's not an expert. Shouldn't be talking about alimony. A couple times he used the terms, in Monica's mind. Why in the world, if you're hired as a probate administrator, are you ever coming into a criminal murder trial, hired by the defense, testifying to things such as, I was doing this in Monica's mind, I believe. Completely inappropriate, complete conflict of interest, whether he denies it or not. The stock options was really boring, I know that. We all got a little sleepy on that. But the point was to show you that he almost blew that deadline twice. Let's give him the first one, right? Okay, the first one, he said, well, I didn't know about it. Procter & Gamble didn't tell me. Maybe, maybe not. There's a lot of documents. Give him the benefit of the doubt. They did then say, hey, your first, they're going to expire, and this is why I went through this. The second said, he almost lost him. Procter & Gamble sent a letter saying, hey, it's happening again. We don't have an obligation to send you this letter. But we are. They're going to expire. You better exercise them. But his smug answer, every time I asked him, was, well, I exercised him. He couldn't even concede that you almost blew the deadline. You know what happens? And I asked him, when you don't exercise these options, well, the answer is you lose it. They expire. Hundreds of thousands of dollars to the estate he would have lost had not those letters come through. He was completely unprepared to testify. I get 300 plus emails. I have a lot of clients. I think that between him and Mr. Malatesta, they thought, hey, this is pretty cool. I get to come to court. I'm going to testify in this big murder trial. Hey, defense, what are you asking me? I'm going to ask you this. Great. Completely unprepared for any cross-examination. Completely unprepared to answer any questions that were not already told that were going to be asked to him. Another thing that he did was he went into Miss Ebersbacher's chart and he started saying, oh, her number is about death versus divorce. They're completely wrong because she didn't value this side company. I know that you guys didn't know a lot about this side company. It was another detour that we took in the trial, but there was a side company, as you heard the evidence, that Fabio was an investor in an app, right? And part of that was a bigger company, as you heard the testimony, and it's Wella was paying this scissor boy company, and then part of that, Fabio got a part of that, right? Well, Mr. Rubin, on his own, says Miss Ebersbacher's wrong, and again, we were going round and round about numbers that were probably pretty boring to everybody, and said, I'm going to estimate this as a $385,343 win for the divorce side. That's how much that she didn't put in there, and she's wrong, and she doesn't know what she's doing. So he came up with this number. Again, it got into, I took a 30% from this, that, whatever. But nothing was based on any financial documents other than, I looked at some emails. It was very strange how he came up with this number, right? But what was not strange is ultimately, and this was on direct exam, he told you, we, the probate administrators, settled that company for $25,000. Settled the whole thing for $25,000. So how can you come in and estimate the value of that company at Fabio's share at $385,000 when you settled it? And that's a fact. I settled it for $25,000. And then again, take 50% off that for divorce, which he didn't do. Again, numbers, not the end all of this trial, but I just want to show you that these defense witnesses who come in and spin these things and tell you these different versions and that prosecution witnesses are wrong are meant to distract you from the evidence in the case and the truth of the case. Does this change the fact that the defendant conspired to kill Fabio? Not at all. But we can't let that go because it's important that you know who the witnesses are that are testifying to you. And at the end of the day, again, the lump sum of the insurance money is what she wanted and needed. And when I asked him about life insurance, again, you're the probate administrator. If you look back or think back, he said, I have no comment. The defense brought him back because the defense said, I want to ask you one more thing. Were you paid by us? He's like, no, I was not. Once again, I don't think he was ready for the follow-up. But are you billing the probate estate? I don't know. I don't think that's really the answer. I think the answer is he's most likely going to bill the probate estate. And who is that estate? The children of Fabio and the defendant if she's found not guilty. Isn't that kind of the same thing as billing the defense? Defendant chose death out of her options, right? Death versus divorce. She can be the victim, she can get sympathy, she can be the grieving widow. Slowly, she can incorporate Baker into her life this way. Remember, if you get a divorce, you can't just all of a sudden be like, I'm going with this pedophile. But death, everyone feels sorry for her. And you know what? Everyone kind of was accepting Baker into her life. He's helping Jessica with the car. Jessica testified, I liked him. You heard statements before about the sister had played racquetball with him. The mom had lunch with him. She's already easing Baker into life because they're accepting him now. He's helping her. She's grieving. They all feel sorry for the defendant. Pretty strategic. And then my favorite, Deborah Obad, the girl's second mother. Everybody was wrong, according to Deborah Obad. And everyone probably knows a Deborah Obad, but she wanted to be involved. She wanted to be relevant. She inserted herself into this case. And you can't help but think of the saying, with friends like this, who needs enemies? On one end, she's proclaiming to be the defendant's really good friend. On the back end, she's going behind her back so many times, accusing her of things. This woman was suspicious of her friend. She does not want to admit it on the stand. But the things that she did in calling the police that many times, she was pointing the police in the direction of the defendant, not just Baker. But all the inconsistencies and all the backtracking and all the perjury she committed. Salma Cherry. There's the text right there. It's clear as day. Monica is asking about the insurance. Her statement, Monica didn't ask, it was all me. All right. That's where we started. No, that was all me. She's coming in, minimizing. And again, remember, this is a defense witness. And the defense brought up the point to her. Miss Obad, didn't the prosecution have you under subpoena? Weren't you going to be their witness? She said, yes. And then it came out, prosecution hasn't talked to her in 4 years. Came out on the stand, right? That's because the prosecution is not going to put someone on the stand who they know is going to perjure themselves. She added no value to the prosecution team, as you could see. But the defense thought, aha, she supports Monica. We have to humanize the defendant. We have to bring someone on who's still her friend and show the human side. That's fair. That's a defense strategy, but I think it might have backfired. The grand jury testimony. Did Monica ask you to call Wello the night of the murder? Yes. And did she tell you that she wanted to find out about his benefits? Correct. She came into trial, she denied it. I didn't say that at the grand jury. Then she finally admitted it when I showed her. And then she continued to deny that she talked to Henry Meyer about life insurance. Again, she testified at the grand jury. I can show her that. And every time, well, I mean, if that's what you say, I didn't say it. I'm showing you it in print, what was transcribed. So the grand jury testimonies were apparently wrong. The recorded interviews with Parshall. And this is the example of exactly why you record conversations with these witnesses. This is why. Because fast forward 8 years, 7 years, they get on the stand and they don't tell the truth, or they legit don't remember. You have a transcript and you have a recording. And keep in mind, I'm showing her transcripts. If for 1 second that transcript didn't match the actual recording, the defense would have gotten up here and told you. So those transcripts are accurate. This is about Luigi when she denied, I never talked to Luigi about anything insurance. Tell his son, don't worry. I'm going to give him his watch, don't worry. There's a lot of insurance policies because he's in grad school now. She denied that. Monica said that when I showed her the transcript. I guess I said that if you're reading it correctly, like I'm going to read it wrong. I shouldn't have said that because that wasn't true. All right. Then we go further into an interview with Detective Parshall. And I don't know what the problem was admitting that she had said that she saw Baker and Monica, the defendant, coming out of the bedroom, but she just did not want to admit that. She said it repeatedly, and this is back in 2017, or 18 actually, 17, after it all happened. This is February 14th. This is weeks after it happened. And then we go into talks about Anna. And the sister said in Italian, get the fuck out. And the detective even confirmed, Anna? And she said, yeah, Anna. Anna said something. So first of all, she says, well, I see that now that you showed me, but I didn't say that. I didn't see that in the bedroom. And it wasn't Anna, and now it's Morella. Again, another recording is wrong. Nothing's right here. Adam Dawson's wrong. And you know, I went round and round with Mr. Dawson, and I think he legitimately goes into the interviews and writes it. But my point being with Mr. Dawson was recording's the best method because you have an exact statement that somebody said. Notes can get lost. Notes can get skewed, or you might forget something if you're relying on memory as he testified. But we have Deborah to tell you that's exactly what happened with Mr. Dawson. Mr. Dawson's report, Deborah walked toward the bedroom, Baker and Monica were coming out. That's not correct. And then she goes on to say that Mr. Dawson's reports are incorrect. There's a reference to what Monica's mother said about get that man out of her bedroom. That's not correct either. The statement of Rob being shown the video. We know that the neighbor brought over a video that night when everyone was there. We've heard testimony that night a neighbor brought over a video. The defendant didn't watch that night, but it was in the hands of some of the family and friends, right? But she tells Detective Parshall, the neighbor who you guys got the video from has shown Rob the video. Trial, I don't think it meant Rob. That was written wrong, said wrong. I don't have an answer for that. I just have a recording and a transcript. And then once again with the interview with Mr. Dawson. She came into court, and what she wanted to do, if it wasn't clear, is to say, I decided the morning of the murder that Jessica was going to babysit for my son last minute. That way Monica would have never known, therefore Monica would have never been able to plan this. Well, that's what she's saying in court. And I confronted her with, yeah, but back in 2017 when you interviewed, you said that you set that whole babysitting job up the Friday before. Which would mean Monica would have known about the babysitting job. She denied that as well. And this was my favorite. Poor Barry. I'm sure everyone's wondering who Barry is. Barry got implicated in a murder because he's short. So from that picture, and I'm not even sure she saw the zoomed in one. I don't know what photo she saw, frankly, but you know, Barry, it's a crime to be short, I guess, because suddenly he's a killer because he's short. And the Porsche keys. She told the grand jury that the defendant kept the Porsche keys in a drawer under the DVR to the left. The picture speaks for itself, the Porsche keys, with a 12 placard where blood was found. That's when Mr. Baker went to the drawer and knew where to go to open the drawer to get the Porsche keys out to leave in the Porsche. And remember, Fabio drove the truck that day because he went to do that power washer thing we saw a video. So there's no Porsche keys that would be sitting on the counter, most likely. They're in the drawer, exactly where Deborah said they were. But Deborah can't even concede that because she sees the placard. She's been around this. She's been to the grand jury. She knows. Oh, this is crime scene photos, by the way. That's not where the monitor was. So now that would assume that the crime scene photographers came and moved around all the objects and then took photographs. So basically everything Deborah Obad, take it with a grain of salt. She wanted to be involved. She inserted herself into this case. But it's interesting, she hasn't talked to the defendant in 8 years or visited her. Deborah wanted to be relevant. When we get to Christopher Austin then, the big thing with Christopher Austin is, he lied, he's a liar, and he got the deal of a century. Well, what I'll say about that is that if you're going to lie, and everything you said up here is a lie to get a deal, then lie right, lie big, go big. Say Monica was on the phone. Say I talked to Monica. Add her into the mix a little bit more. If we are pushing so hard, which there's no evidence anywhere that we're pushing for any of that, then say it. And by the way, this is the first time I think a defense attorney has ever said, you took too long to arrest the suspect and you guys investigated too much. Said that with Baker too. If only. But that just shows you the care and the time that the detectives took on this. I know that the defense talked about the calls too. You can't see that up there. It looks pretty far away and we're all probably a little bleary-eyed by this afternoon. But up there, we talked about the three-way calls. There's no evidence. This isn't evidence. This is Austin's record showing you on these dates on 1/6. There's multiple calls. Right in line, Alfred Birdsong, Baker, and Austin. All consecutive in line, going just like the calls with Isabella and her mom. Which, by the way, those calls, Isabella and her mom, I don't know who concluded that these are three-way calls. There's no evidence. If you look at the chart, it doesn't show that it's a three-way call. They're exactly close in time of the time frame, just like these are. Could someone put someone on hold and get another call in at the same time? Of course, because they're all seconds apart. So there's no evidence of any three-way calls. If we're going to say evidence of three ways for Monica and Isabella, then there you go. Same with Birdsong, Austin, and Baker, just like Austin said. The one thing, I was in Vancouver, Washington, and defense repeatedly stated Austin never mentioned the defendant in Washington. Now, what I will say, the focus was not on the defendant in Washington. You got to see Mr. Austin cross-examined, questioned at length, repeatedly. He ended up being arrested. He ended up confessing very quickly his role in it. He confessed to stabbing Fabio. No one was expecting that. He confessed it. There was no evidence that we presented to him that we even knew he was a stabber. He knew that we knew he was there because he was arrested and he was told, we know you were there. But we want to know, or the detective said, we want to know what happened in between. Just a couple points. In the interview, and this is to rebut, because we're in rebuttal, that no mention of the defendant. He met at the gym and at her house probably 6 to 7 months before. That's at the interview. He offered it. That's a mention of the defendant. I remember that girl, I got a call. Her husband is there, he's home. That's what he said Baker told him. That's in Washington. Again, he doesn't know anything yet. That's the initial interview with these two detectives in court. It's exactly what he's consistent with what he said in court, in the proffer, and ever since. When he said he felt bad, this is in Vancouver, Washington. It's all good. She's going to get some money, is what Baker told her. Money came up. He's put in with this Perkins agent, and defense attorney, I think mistakenly, I don't think it's intentional, is referring to him as a police officer. It's not a police officer. And I repeat, it's not a police officer. The individual works for the police as a civilian who goes into a cell posing as an inmate or a co-inmate with you, and the goal is to get someone talking. There's not a script for this agent. There's not say this and this whole switch. When he made the comment about you need to switch up your story, that was the Perkins agent winging it, saying things. He wasn't told to say that. It was implied at one point that the detective said something to the effect of you need to switch up your story. It certainly wasn't the detectives that ever said anything of that nature. It's the Perkins agent talking to him. And that's where we get to the point the defense brought up. To me, and this is from talking, having a conversation normal in a cell like you're somebody together. To me, it sounded like it was the bitch who planned everything. Austin, yeah, she did. No coercion. No one's planning anything. This is Austin bringing up this female, the defendant. What was the reason? Insurance money. Again, this was all brought up in Washington. You hear there's been a lot of statements, a lot of things with Mr. Austin in interviews. And I just want to be clear what was brought up before he was ever brought to Los Angeles. But I don't know if they have anything on her except for what he told me she said. So I believe she set the whole thing up. This is his mindset the day that he's arrested. Remember, the police, the detectives here, the interview is not focused on the defendant. Nobody is saying, there's nowhere, and you won't hear it in the testimony, saying, tell us about the female. We want to know about the defendant. You tell us, we'll give you a deal. None of that ever happened. He is arrested for murder. It's on him. He's thinking about himself, his kid, his wife. His life is over in his mind. This is talking to the agent. This is his true thoughts to the agent. This is what he's saying. He told me that she said he's home. His impression. Christopher Austin is the first one that ever brought up that 1/22, January 22nd day that the murder was supposed to happen. Nobody knew this in Washington. No questions were ever asked of it. There was no idea that this murder was supposed to happen the day before out in public until Christopher Austin told us. And the way that it came up is he started talking about it. And there's this lot of like conferring with his attorney. Of course he conferred with his attorney. His attorney was there. He's with 2 DAs and 2 detectives in a room, and he's allowed to confer with his attorney. We encourage it. And to suggest that there was anything nefarious with the attorney going on is completely inappropriate, because the attorney represented him and talked to him about, be honest with the DAs, be honest with the police. This is your time. Tell them the truth. So that's when Austin brought up this other attempt, to which the detectives and the DAs were, what are you talking about? And he starts describing it on his own. Pillars and a breezeway and a walkway, and there's a Chinese restaurant and a nail salon. We parked in the back. No idea until the detectives went back into Monica's phone, found that faux search that had been sent to her. I think it's faux search that had been sent to her, had an address attached. Googled the address, pulled up a map, took it into Austin, and he recognized it. And guess what? It matched the exact description that he had just given everybody before we ever showed him a photo. But it has to be corroborated, right? Because, again, anything with someone, we've arrested him for murder. We're not going to just take everything at face value, so you have to corroborate it. That restaurant was in the defendant's phone, and it's a pho near me. So this story about Baker, like, well, I know they always go there. Then why are you searching pho near me? If you always go there, that's not a search you would do. It's in the phone records. You can see that they're out in an area. I'll get to that in a minute. He described the location, but more importantly, it's corroborated right here in court because Robert Baker admitted it. He said they went there. For him to say that, we would have never known. If he didn't tell us that, we would have never known about that plan. And when they said they're in the area the hours before, so Mr. Austin said, I went there around, I think, 9, but then he kept going back to, it was dark. Obviously, is the time wrong, because we know what time Fabio got there. Came out of the restaurant around 6-ish. That big red circle behind the green one that was testified to by Cy Ray, there's a big, you can see the big red circle behind the green. That's a pretty big area. That can tell him, or tell us, that he's in the general area, that area. It's not saying I'm sitting at the pho restaurant, that general area from 3-something on. he was in the area before. What were they doing? We don't know, but we know they stopped at a Ralph's, they got money, they were out, and at some point the plan changed. Fabio was going to this restaurant and they parked in that back parking lot, and we know that the attempted murder at that time, or the thought to kill him, walking up with a knife, happened because even bigger confirmed that one. The day of the murder. I'm not going to go through the facts. I know that's there's a lot that went on the day of the murder. What I will say about that is that the defendant set the plan in motion. She set it in motion that day. Started off seeing Baker at the gym, talking to him, opened the safe at 2:03. That's a big deal. That safe, lying about the safe being opened, that's when the gold coins got out that were used as payment. Again, something that no one really knew about these gold coins until much later. She knew that she would be gone at 4. She knew that both daughters would be gone at 4. The text with Bella, the exhibit was entered into evidence. It's up there. Again, it's small print, but it's basically showing the timing. At 4:22, Bella called her, as we said. She had an interview at 4. Who knew she'd be done and on her way home by 4:22? Her mom didn't know that. That's a fast interview. Her mom probably expected her to be at her interview longer, and she was a little distance from home. So that's why the window was tight. It was probably a 4 to 5 window. Jessica's babysitting. I'll make myself out there. Bella has an interview. You got 4 to 5. Do it. They did it, by the way. It worked. So the window was fine. It did work. It was close, but it worked. But by 4:22, Bella's on her way home. She calls her mom calls her back. And then at 3 seconds later, there's an incoming call from the eye doctor, and then an outgoing call. There's no overlap of these calls. That's 4:27 and 4:28, and then at 4:37, Bella calls and talks to her mom again, and that's when her mom redirects her. And I actually said, did your mom detour you to go pick up your glasses? And she said, yes. And then I think the defense got up trying to lead her along, like, well, she didn't tell you how to, she didn't tell you that she had to go. Isabella said yes. Her mom called her and told her, go pick up your glasses, because she was coming home too fast. And she did let her daughter come home first. It's a hard pill to swallow for anyone, that resides in somebody. It's almost unfathomable, especially if you're a parent, to understand how that could happen. But this is a woman who is all about herself. And probably in some bizarre way, she convinced herself that this would all work out, her kids would be fine, but it was about herself and keeping herself out of the loop. And it did work. The window was tight. They executed it. They murdered Fabio. They got away, and then Isabella came home, and she came home right after. She did let her daughter find her dad. And that's something that you should really think about. What kind of person does that? Self-centered. The co-counsel used narcissistic, self-absorbed. Someone who feels life is owed to them and their happiness. They put themselves above everybody else. The post-murder behavior was just the tip of what started to interest the police, because right off the bat, they knew that this was not your typical burglary. It was too intimate. And as soon as they realized that there was a fake ransacking, and by the way, one thing that wasn't pointed out before was, amongst other things, do you remember her IDing jewelry that was never even stolen? Like, this was just paper that the police had at the station. That was jewelry. Just random jewelry, and she starts circling things. Many, not one. That looks like it, that looks like it, that. Those things were never even missing. That wasn't jewelry from her house. But that just shows you she thought it might be, so she starts going along with the program. She's so programmed at this point to follow the protocol, to follow the plan, that she'll ID jewelry that may not even exist. You saw you heard the testimony then from the detectives who followed her and her behavior. Obviously, I'm not going to go through all of that again. It's odd, it's weird, it's not normal behavior. You've heard it a million times. That is not a grieving widow. Why? She's so detached. She's so detached because this is what she's wanted for so long. This is the celebration time. She continued to support Baker even after she's told about the DNA. Continues to support him. In the police car, she doesn't say, what, did you do something? What's going on? Why are you here? It's somebody talked, stick to the plan. It's already, their conspiracy's still going. They knew this day was coming or could come. All those overhears with DNA, told about the DNA, all those overhears, never talks about the real killer. You know, all this behavior is just not how you would react if your husband or wife or friend was murdered. It's just not how you would react. You would want to find who these killers are. You'd want to figure out what's going on. And calling about insurance or calling saying, what's the status? Okay, I got that. But there's more. It's talking to Baker, your closest person, your confidant, she called him. Who could have done this to my husband? Oh my gosh, the real killers are out there. None of that came up ever. Wouldn't that be a normal topic of conversation? Most importantly, and I am nearing the end, I know you guys like that word, what defense didn't explain. And this is important because there's some things you just can't explain away, and they've tried. Some are, okay, well that's a good attempt at an explanation. Some are, well maybe, but that seems, not as likely. But some are just, you can't explain them. Why did she lie to the police about not knowing anything about her DVR? What's the reason you lie to the police? They didn't explain that. When they're asking you, hey, this DVR system probably captured the killers coming into your house. What do you know about it? Who made it? What's the brand, the make, the model, anything that you know about it? She lied to him. I don't know. She knew all of that. What's the reason that you're lying? You're lying. The only logical answer is you're lying because you know that you're involved in this. You know that Rod Baker came in and just killed your husband. You don't want them to have all that. The iCloud storage that they're never going to, you don't want them to get the video of that. You don't, at this point, remember, she doesn't necessarily know what's on the video outside. And if she does, she knows that those joggers weren't really identifiable. Okay, that's what she knows. So she probably knew they existed, but that they couldn't really identify. In fact, they talk about it in the overhears where you couldn't really see the faces. But if you get that DVR, that's big. So if you're a grieving widow and your husband was just murdered in your backyard dying, I've been, oh my God, what can I find in my house? Yes, the DVR, let me find it. I'm going to go on my computer. I'm going to figure out what it was, but she lies. I don't know anything about it when she's the one who installed it. And she knows she did. She sent the passwords to Baker. She has the paperwork. She met the guy. She lied about all that. Why? What's the reason? They didn't address it. She also denied that she could access it remotely. Why do you lie about that? You were just on it. Why would you ever lie to the police about that? You know what? I was just at Target and I just checked it. I didn't see anything. She lies about it and says, I can't access it. Why in the world would you? You would because you know exactly who went in there to kill him because you set it up. There is no reasonable explanation why you would lie about that when you were just on it. She lied about meeting him at Target, and you even know that she met him at Target because Baker, in his letter, whether it's lie or truth, depending on which version, said we met at Target. In that letter that he wrote, this supposed confession letter. Why are you lying if you met at Target? Well, they'll say, and that was where we get into the defense, oh, she didn't want them to know about the affair. All right. But why did she meet him at Target before? Once it all came out, right? The affair came out. The affair was a given now. You had plenty of time now to go back and be like, you know what? I did talk to you about this Target meeting. I did meet someone. I know I lied to you. I was trying to cover my affair. But now the affair's out. Everybody knew when she was arrested about this affair. Lied about that. Not explained.
Well, I'm going to check, Your Honor, that inappropriately discusses her duty after she was arrested.
It's overruled.
Opening the safe at 2:03. Why'd she lie about that? I don't know the passcode. It's too hard to open. It was a deleted text. Remember that. So she thought it's gone. And the only way it was found again was those AT&T records that were subpoenaed that I'm sure she could never fathom would be subpoenaed. But why is she lying about the safe? It wasn't touched. I never opened it. I can't get in. She was in there because she opened it at 2:03. Why did she lie about the burner phone? Baker gave her that burner phone probably in her bedroom when he was in there. Why is she lying about that? She goes into this whole thing with Baker about making up a story about the burner phone, and I found it in the garage, and he's like, no, say I left it in your car. Well, why are we lying about a burner phone? We know you took it to Canada. You just got back from Canada. You just got back. It said, welcome to Canada. We know you.
I said, my lawyer's said the same thing. I said, don't ever let me ever again. He said you think you're not making a deal. Baby, you don't fucking do. I'll take you to my fucking grave. I'll take the blame with me. Hey, the cameras. I'll take the blame. I'll lock and do it. The cameras. Where? At Target. They have a camera in glass shoes. They have no video of it. It was? Yeah, I do it. The video was only for a month or two. And nothing like the other one at night too. There's nothing. Only thing is a couple of drops of my DNA, and you explained that already. That they took it. Yeah. Or something, or maybe you took it. I don't know. So just leave that. So look at that. I'm so scared. And I had something in there. What? The thing that I wanted you to flush. What was it? What was it? Don't say it. Damaging? No, just asking you about your Target video. Asking me about it? Yeah. Like, have you seen the video? Oh, okay. I don't see anything. Okay, no, that's fine. That's not bad. That's fine. And something about the home camera surveillance systems. Yeah. I said, I hope you were in the area. I hope you didn't admit to being in the area because you were with me. I didn't talk at all. I didn't say anything. That's what I meant, sir. I was probably getting the gym. The sergeant read it, and all of it probably copied it away. Maybe get back here? Give me everything back. Give me that letter? Did you hear the audio? At the police car? No, did you hear it? Yeah. Anything? Nothing that, I mean... I didn't hear that. I haven't heard it. I haven't got that photo. Nothing. It just felt... Nothing really that's... It was normal shit. It was normal shock. Yeah. Yeah, because I was shocked and not. You were shocked. We were shocked. I saw the video of my interview. Oh, did you? Yeah. I haven't heard that. They were fucking with me so bad. And I answered the way I was supposed to. Yeah, I didn't answer. I didn't even answer. They haven't got into my phone. I need to. I'm scared. It's just so sad. Hey. For how long? 50 years? I know that, but they have nothing on it. Only drops of blood. Where? I'm told it was a couple of drops in the kitchen. And gloves outside a few cups. From the top. Pastor. Huh? That's what I said. But I said I don't remember. It was that weekend, like what day it was, because Jessica said it was not on Monday. It was not Monday? It was not Monday. It was not that day. It was. Because nobody saw it. Jessica said, no, my mom. No, they didn't play that day. We did? No, we did play. Yeah, we did. We did play. And she was there. And she was there, and she remembers me and her working out medicine. I think it was Monday, but if it wasn't Monday, it was Sunday. It was one of those days. Right, I thought I didn't know. Yeah, it's that day, that morning, or the day before. I didn't make a point to remember that it was an important thing, because that was here. Yeah. You told everybody something else. You never told everybody here, so. I know it's what I talked to her about. They all, everyone at the gym said you were working on your car or something. I said I told her that too. Listen, I want to see you. I want to see her. I know because I've been doing it. So if you can't show me any evidence that he did that, then I don't mind. Because he wants you to go. Can't say that.
I told mine, I thought I could bring it up again. He's never trying to get some problem. He's on the situation. Look out for you. I said, I know that. I appreciate it, but every single day, it's negative. So-called secret phones and what the fuck is that?
I've never been asked yet about the flip phone. I've been asked yet.
No, but they said it, in the court. They said that bullshit. What the fuck are you talking about? Everybody has phones. Gone.
For sure.
It broke. So I got rid of it. It broke and there was no more. And I had to do it the day before. What were the chances? That might be, but that shouldn't be breaking. Yeah. That was bad enough. So you can't do it. I'm not going to do it again. I won't do it with you. After I'm gone, I'm still doing it somehow. I'm not going. I told my mother I'm loyal. I'm a loyal motherfucker. I'm loyal. And look at me. I said, I can't expect you to understand this way. So I'm not. And I told her, I said, I will not take the fall.
You were not there with me when I was hurt. So I was sure, I hope you didn't say that you were, because then somebody looked like a liar and I know you weren't there, so.
You showed me how to work, and you said every now and again, if I'm on camera, this is what, I'll let you know, and the way that you know, that's the extent of it. And they try to say that you're monitoring your shit.
He asked me what my plan was. My plan with you was to wait for the girls to leave, and then ultimately we
That was the ideal plan. Yeah, because it's hard to work for me, or whatever, so we think that I know none of you, and you do this, and
Actually, it's not just a story. I'm a loyal guy. I've been through a lot of shit. I know. I know this sounds crazy. I will never forsake you. I will never walk away. I will never not walk away. So let's stop talking about that. I already know I'm through it. See to win. I'm not worried about it. It will go. Nothing's going on. But anyway, this thing coming out the way it's supposed to is it requires boldness. If I got to blatantly shock you alive to a jury that they can't take it back and take the blame, I don't have support. So I gotta stop to get off that constantly.
So you'll have support if I get out. If I get out, you'll have support.
Sementilli, stop calling me that.
See, the marriage, you can change it.
I'm planning on permanently changing my name, so please don't call me that anymore. No, text. Yeah, because I haven't gotten into the phone.
Yeah. No, it's actually, you know, we saw each other.
No, beforehand.
Yeah, he says that, you know, we're here.
Yeah, but, I just hope there's nothing wrong. We can't even get into my phone.
This is all computers, this is all computer
I
science.
don't even use that shit. The only thing you and I use is WhatsApp. Text me, sorry. Nothing.
Are you sure?
No, no. That's why I went. That's what I'm looking for. I don't see anything. And even then, it was just going out. That's the shit. Don't worry. You should be scared. I'm scared of it. Scared of it. But there's nothing you can do about it. You have to wait. Well, I wish our chance to talk to each other.
I think this is the process.
Somehow that we said, somehow that really said, until she came here and talked to yours. But there was something that can go on. So I wouldn't know what. Just a lot. I wouldn't know that. Well, absolutely. Yours is how can I tell you that here? However, it's when you really officially listen to what it's about.
I think we really need to wait.
Oh, so good. I'm not the one that has the problem. You do. I'm sorry. I feel you. I'm just really crazy.
I wanna go home. Otherwise, I'm done.
No, never.
No, they know that.
There's a reason why the defense didn't touch any of that in their closing. And he spent a full day when you combine yesterday and today. And that's because that's the most clear-cut thing that you can see, that these two conspired or were involved in this murder together. Not one of those clips was touched or explained by the defense, because it can't be. You actually get to hear the conversation that the defendant and Mr. Baker are having between each other after they're found out. And this is not about an affair. Remember, this is weeks after they've been arrested. The affair is long exposed. In fact, in the police car, she said, "I'm going to deny everything except the affair." That's the least of their worries. Right now, that panic, that conversation is about the murder. They've been found out. Yet, the defendant still maintains no remorse, no guilt, just sadness for herself that she wants to go home with him. How are they going to be together? That has been the theme. This defendant's all about herself. She wants the prize at the end. All that work, all that they did, and they almost pulled it off. And now not to get the reward, you can hear in the words spoken between them. She's devastated. She's devastated because she's not going to be able to be with Robert Baker. There are so many things in these overhears that we've just gone through that you've heard throughout this trial where they're coordinating that made-up story about the racquetball. Again, I think the defense laid off a little bit in their closing about that fake story. But again, why are you creating a fake story about why Baker's DNA would be in your house? You're creating it because you know that he murdered your husband, you were in on it, and you want to cover it. It's the simplest answers. We don't ask you as jurors to leave common sense at the door. Sometimes we get in here and we start overthinking and trying to be a detective ourselves, but that's not what we're asking you to do. We're asking you to listen to the evidence and use your common sense. That's why you were chosen. You also heard during this trial that there was a lot of stipulations. And so when you go back as jurors and you start looking at the evidence, you're going to get the evidence books. It's all the photographs, the audios, the recordings, anything that happened in court, you'll get back in the jury room. And you're free to go through everything that you want. In there's a lot of stipulations. And what that means is what both sides agreed on, that is, you accept that as true. One of them being the phone extractions. So there was some dispute about phone extractions, and specifically that one spa restaurant and lifestyle lounge. You'll see it with your own eyes. These are stipulated agreements between the defense.
I'm going to object, Your Honor, that this states the evidence.
It's overruled in a moment. Again, it's your memory that controls, ladies and gentlemen, not the statements of counsel.
It's stipulated extractions, and their extractions are from LAPD, and you'll get to look at it right there. And what you heard Mr. Broom testify to, he's telling you what's there you don't see. It's stipulated agreements, it's extractions from LAPD.
No stipulation of truth, Your Honor.
Counsel, it's overruled. Counsel, I need to take a break unless you're about to wrap up. Okay.
Okay. I know you happy waiting. Okay, so anyway, that's for you as jurors to look at all the evidence. What I will say, we're at break time, is after these overhears, these things that you just heard that are very, very damaging to both sides because it exposes the real defendant and the real Mr. Baker. Defense attorney stated that there's no more communication since 2018 or something like that. There's no evidence of that. To this day, we don't know if they're communicating. We've seen the efforts that these two have made to get around it. But at some point, the resources of law enforcement have to call it and just move on with the case. So to say there's no more communication, again, we don't know that. What I'm going to finish with is reasonable doubt. It's been explained to you multiple times. You'll get the instruction. That's the standard that we're asking and the court asks you, and there's a law to follow to find this defendant guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. And again, reasonable is what it means, reasonable. It's not possible, it's reasonable. And again, just to read it, it's based on the entire comparison and consideration of all the evidence. Remember, not every single thing in this trial has to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. It's the elements of the charge of murder and conspiracy to commit murder and the allegations. The elements that are listed out for you in the jury instructions that will be read to you, that is what must be proven to you beyond a reasonable doubt. And that's what my co-counsel and I have done for the last 2 months. We've provided you with a lot of information, a lot of evidence, overwhelming evidence, words directly from the defendant. And one last thing I wanted to put up here was Luigi Sementilli. The defense used this. And I actually thought this was a good thing to end on with the prosecution. Because Luigi trusted the defendant. He went in with the presumption of innocence, you would say, in life, right? He accepted her into his family, presumed that she would never do something like this. And he gave her the benefit of the doubt, much like you started here with the presumption of innocence. But as Luigi said in the words of defense counsel, repeated back, once you go back and start recollecting, it becomes very clear. The puzzle pieces fit together very easily. Things started to make sense again. And that was our job, to put the puzzle together tight for you, where every piece fit. And over the course of the last 2.5 months, my co-counsel and I have presented you those pieces, and the puzzle is complete. And we are asking you to go back, during your deliberations and find the defendant guilty of the crime of murder of Fabio, of the crime of conspiring to murder her husband, and the special allegations of lying in wait, taking him by surprise, as well as the financial gain of that life insurance money that she was so consumed with receiving. Thank you.
Thank you. So there's only one thing left to do. It's instruct you in the law, which I'll do tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. I want you fresh. You'll get the case very soon. Until then, the admonition applies. You don't discuss this case among yourselves. If anyone else will form expressing opinions of the cause, I submit it to you. Either good night's rest. I'll see you tomorrow at 9.